Hey guys, Haz here at Shield Canine, and a lot of people always ask me, how do I introduce my new baby to the family dogs? And I have a simple answer to that very complicated question. People do all sorts of things, like they'll bring a baby blanket home, and they'll have the dog smell the baby blanket, and then that's supposedly somehow supposed to get the dogs used to the baby. Here's the thing you have to understand with small children and dogs. A lot of dogs tend to view small children the same way they would view other dogs. I've seen it so many times now that there's no other way to explain it, right? Because the children are on their level, because the children don't move like us and they're often a little bit erratic, they tend to view small children the same exact way that they would view another dog. Now, depending on your dog, that could be a good thing, a bad thing, or maybe a good and bad thing. Because if you ever watch how dogs treat one another, they're not always the nicest with each other. So whenever family dogs around, as you can see, I've got two of them here, and I've got a little one running around somewhere. Hey, S'mores! Where are you, S'mores? S'mores! No one knows where S'mores is. Anyways, maybe one of the bigger ones ate her. Anyways, bring this little guy around the dogs. A lot of people make a big thing out of it. They're saying, okay, like they bring the dogs in, okay, smell the baby, that kind of stuff. I have never once done that. If anything, so the baby has this little bouncer, and I'll put him on the floor in the bouncer, and the dogs know that they are never to touch him. Okay, they are never to touch the baby. They're not to step on him. They can be around him, but they are not to touch him, all right? Because I don't want them, accidentally hurting him. He's obviously very young and he's very small. Now, my older son here, 3 years old, obviously enjoying his Christmas presents. Obviously, he touches the dogs and they touch him, but even minimize. No rough play, ever. No rough play ever. If anybody goes over the line, I immediately discipline them. And of course, I discipline my son as well. There are certain things, because he's 3 years old, he'll try to do with the dogs that I will say, nope, you are not allowed to do that. And if he doesn't cease and desist, I will correct him as well, because it's not okay for all these guys, that have a little bit of drive, that have some intensity, that dogs do, and that do the things that dogs do. It's really important that everybody be smart about how everything is being organized and structured in the home. So I don't introduce small children like this to dogs. I don't say, hey, bud, hey, Gage, hey, Dizzy, come over and smell the baby. I don't do that, right? I simply teach them to respect his space. And that's really big. Now, when he's older and he gets more mobile, by the time he's a year old, right? By the time he's a year old, these guys, so used to just him being around that it's not even going to be a thing. They're not even going to think twice. And of course, just as with my older son, I'm not going to allow him to do certain things. Like, for Dizzy over here is chewing a bone. Would I allow the baby to crawl on the bed with her and try to take that bone from her? No, I would never do that, right? Things like this. I don't put my dogs, or I at least do my very best not to put my dogs in situations where they could fail. Right? I give them every reasonable opportunity to succeed, and the same with my children, okay? So introducing small children to dogs, I don't do it. Now, I have a Chihuahua. I don't know where she is. I have a Chihuahua. Obviously, I'm not too concerned about her. Oh my God, what's that face? I have a Chihuahua. I'm not too concerned about her. She does whatever she wants to do. She climbs on. She goes and smells them and stuff like that. It's not a big deal. For the big dogs, look, they catch a little sniff and they keep it moving. I'm okay with that. But if they, get real sniffy or busy around the baby, immediately, no, go away. I don't even allow them to rough play around her. Not that I allow rough play in the house anyways, but I don't even allow them to, rough play with even in close proximity to play the baby. They're not allowed to be aroused around my children. They're not allowed to be excited around my kids, because that's where things can happen. The dog can accidentally knock the child over, bulldoze the kid, all that type of stuff. There's so many things that can happen. So the best way to introduce your dog to your kids is to not make a deal out of it. At this age, there's really next to no interaction that needs to be happening as far as I'm concerned. They're there, they share the space with one another. It's a structured kind of environment. And, they just really get used to being around each other over, a few months. And by the time this little guy's mobile, oh my God, what a face. By the time this little guy's mobile, it's not going to be a big deal for them. Okay, so this is small children or babies, introducing your new baby to dogs. Don't make a deal out of it. That's my way. Just have them coexist in a structured manner. The people that worry, I often find, are the ones where their dogs is just a free-for-all in the house. There's no structure, there's no control, there's no obedience, and the dog's just out of control all the time, and they just hope, that the dog takes a liking to the baby. Now, I'll tell you this, guys, the biggest issue I see with children and dogs is resource guarding, okay? People setting up the kids, because listen, kids are silly. They'll crawl on that bed and try to take that bone from that dog, right? And that's going to trigger, the dog's competitive instinct, especially if she perceives, obviously I'm different, right? So I can be right here and it's not going to be an issue, right? But if another dog did that, that would be considered very rude in dog language, right? I don't allow them to do that to each other. I don't allow them to compete for that bone, right? If he tried to go and steal that bone from her, I would discipline him. He's not allowed to do that. So if I allow my little guy here to start crawling up on that bed, what am I going to be surprised if something goes wrong? Of course not, because at this age and at this, he is no bigger than like a medium to small dog, right? And these guys, sorry guys, these guys are relatively large, okay? So obviously I'm not going to set him up for failure, and I'm not going to set them up for failure. So resource guarding's big. If I had once this little guy gets mobile, I'll never be giving them meaty bones when he's crawling around or anything like that. And I'll be always very cognizant. He's never going to be allowed to crawl up onto them. They're not going to be allowed to be excited around them. Everything's going to be very structured. I make it very clear. This is not just one of the dogs. This is a very precious thing that belongs to Daddy, and you are not to misbehave around it. You're supposed to be very, very careful and cautious around it. And that's how, my other son's able to be around the dogs, and I don't have a concern, right? Because we did this from day one, and we don't have an issue, even with dogs like this. High drive, working dogs, it's not a problem. Now, of course, every dog's an individual, and there's always different things to take into consideration. So just because this is working for me right now, doesn't mean that there's an individual dog. Of course, I've had dogs in the past I would never trust around small children just because I know who they are, right? So, of course, the type of dog you own, you must take these things into consideration. But in most cases, the vast majority of cases, if you are smart in your management and in your initial kind of introduction, your child crawl all over the dogs or put pressure on the dogs or the dogs are not allowed to be aroused around the child, you're not going to have a problem. So, guys, understand when we brought this baby home, I literally made no deal out of it. There was no deal. Hey, there's a baby now. That's it. That's it. He's here. You have to respect his space. That's it. If they tried to go and see him right away, I'd be like, no. Go. Get away. Nobody's seeing the baby right away. So I don't think the baby wants me to do any more YouTube. But thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment below, and check out our online training that we have on the website, shieldcanine.ca.